Hi, this is Dr. Kirby coming to you from Northern California. We're going to be again talking about biomechanics terminology for the modern podiatrist, and this topic today is going to be on pressure. So when we start looking at the term pressure, what exactly does that mean? Pressure basically is the force applied per unit surface area. So if we have a force being applied here on this panel, and we measure the force magnitude over its surface area, the force over surface area is going to be the pressure. Pressure is going to be measured not just as a force, but a force over surface area. And this is important to understanding why pressure is quite different than force in many ways. So that if we were going to have higher pressures, we need to either have a higher force or a smaller surface area of contact with that force to get that higher pressure. The units for pressure used in the biomechanics and engineering community is called the Pascal, named after Blaise Pascal, which was a 17th century mathematician and physicist. 1 Pascal is basically 1 Newton acting over a 1 square meter surface area. 1,000 pascals are known as a kilopascal, abbreviated as a kPa. A megapascal is 1,000,000 pascals. To convert that into the English units, 145 psi is approximately 1 megapascal. 100 psi is going to be approximately 689 kilopascals. When we look at tissue injury and pressure, and this is why this is so important for us to understand as podiatrists, that pressure and excessive pressure can cause injury, especially to the plantar foot. So I want to give some real-life examples of things that we can relate to so you can better understand how pressure and force are very different from another. Let's first of all take the example here of a fingertip of approximately 1 square centimeter pressing on the flesh of, let's say, our forearm with 10 newtons of applied force. That's about 2¼ pounds of force. And the same amount of force being applied to this hypodermic syringe and a needle. When we start looking at the fingertip, since it's 1 square centimeter, that force is going to produce a pressure of 0.1 megapascal. However, since the needle tip here, this 25 gauge needle, which is 0.000025 square centimeters, or approximately a 57 micrometer, which means there's approximately 17 of these 25 gauge needle tips can fit into a millimeter, is going to produce, for the same amount of force as 2 Newton force, a 4,000 megapascal pressure. So basically going from a fingertip to a needle tip with the same amount of force is going to produce 40,000 more times pressure. And this is why this same force will just indent the skin here, whereas a force applied here is going to allow that needle tip to puncture through the skin and into the subcutaneous fat and other tissues. So this means that tissue injury is not just caused by too much force, but it's more caused by too much pressure or stress acting on or within the tissues of our body, so that we must understand that tissue injury isn't just being caused by force, it's being caused by the contact area and or cross-sectional area that force is acting on, whether this is a pressure or a stress. Another real-life example for us would be that of a knife blade. Knife blades, as we all know, work better if the edge is thin. So when we sharpen a knife blade, what we're basically doing is decreasing the surface area of contact of that blade edge with the contact area of the material that we're going to be cutting, so that when we do a thinner knife edge, it's going to decrease the surface area of that edge so that we can have higher pressures on the object we're cutting to allow the object to cut much better than it would have cut if it hadn't been sharpened. And here we can see a dull blade here in micrograph at 2,000 times magnification. Here we have a sharp blade at 10,000 times magnification to better give you an illustration of that. Pressures on the plantar foot can be measured fairly easily now. We have both pressure mats, which look something like this, and we also have pressure insoles. Pressures from these measuring systems and devices will be measured either in kilopascals or in newtons per square centimeter. 1 Newton per square centimeter is 10 kilopascals or 0.01 megapascals. Dave Armstrong, who's done some of the leading research on diabetic foot ulcerations and pressures, found in their study from 1998 that mean plantar pressure for controls that were uninjured was approximately 63 newtons per square centimeter, whereas neuropathic ulcers, where there was pressure breakdown of the plantar skin, was significantly higher at 83.1 newtons per square centimeters. We know that these pressures that occur on the plantar foot as a result of ground reaction force acting over the bony areas of the foot, and these high pressure areas that occur due to too much pressure over too small a surface area can lead to things such as diabetic foot ulcerations. And this is actually now a huge topic of research and trying to understand why these ulcerations are created by these high pressure areas. In a research from 2000, Respivic et al. Found that of the 8 patients that healed plantar ulcers with custom foot orthoses, they reduced them, and it seemed to correlate with the reduction in the vertical pressures and pressure time integrals, and increasing the contact area of the plantar foot so that we could redistribute the weight away from this ulcer and get healing. And we can see how putting in a foot orthosis may alter the contour and reduce these pressure areas. Here's a foot orthosis on the bottom and without a foot orthosis on the top. So when we start looking at how foot orthoses work and altering the pressure on the plantar foot, the foot orthosis by itself can't actually reduce the total force acting on the foot. Here's a foot without any orthosis underneath it, and here's a orthosis underneath the foot. The total force here is going to be the same whether it's barefoot or walking on an orthosis. What the orthosis does is increases the surface area of contact on the plantar aspect of the foot so that we can design the orthosis to reduce these high pressure areas on the foot that are leading to these high pressure type symptoms such as ulcers, calluses, or pain on the plantar aspect of the foot. So in this example on the right here, where we have a prominent second metatarsal head, which is a high pressure area, we can design the orthosis with a anterior edge that is thicker with an accommodation for the second metatarsal with a forefoot extension here. And this is another way that we can use foot orthosis, decrease the pressure in high pressure areas so they relieve the pain, whether it's from plantar heel pain, plantar forefoot pain, plantar ulcers, or plantar calluses, or any other type of high pressure type pathology we commonly see in the plantar foot. Plantar pressures may also be reduced on the foot temporarily with total contact casts, or TCCs, and then more long-term with foot orthoses. This study from Peter Cavanaugh from 2005 found that plantar pressures between the ground at plantar prominences can exceed 1,000 kilopascals, whereas pressure with a contact cast at a potential ulcer site will reduce it by 10-fold. We also have other studies coming from 2008, where we had 20 diabetic subjects, had 2 pairs of orthoses made using just the shape as we normally do, and then they made another orthosis that used the information from my plantar pressure data and shape to produce an insole that had specific modifications to reduce the pressure on the plantar forefoot, so that their study found that by using this shape and pressure orthosis that use the pressure data, they were able to reduce pressure by 32% and 21% over the other 2 insoles that just use shape by themselves. So basically what they're saying is that we may be able to use this pressure data in order to effectively transfer pressure away from the plantar forefoot for ulcers or plantar calluses or what have you to the midfoot with this data. And here's their insole that they used in order to do so. There are also a lot of modeling techniques we can use on the computer, and the most popular of this right now is finite element modeling to help design foot orthosis to relieve the plantar pressure on the metatarsal heads. Here's a study from Chen et al. In 2015 from the Journal of Biomechanics, where they took a model of the foot and found that by increasing the thickness of the insole, we were able to reduce plantar pressure. So here's a thin insole and here's a thicker insole, and here's some metatarsal pads being added distally and proximally, showing how these changes in thickness of the orthosis foam, and also a change in the redistribution of a metatarsal pad to different areas of the foot can change the plantar contact area pressure on the foot. And here on the bottom graph, this is showing the strains that occur with these different modifications. This is showing some of the research that is now being conducted. We are seeing more and more of it coming out, which again impresses the point that this idea of plantar pressure is something that we all need to understand, and how pressure is produced and relieved in order to better treat our patients that have these injuries. Finally, Josh Burns and his group from 2006 did a wonderful study on 151 subjects with pes cavus deformity. And again, in the pes cavus deformity, where we have all the pressure on the forefoot and the rear foot with no pressure because of the high arch in the middle part, which increases the force in the plantar forefoot and heel compared to pes planus area. So when you take these 151 subjects with pes cavus deformity and make orthoses that fill in this area on the plantar aspect of the foot, we're actually reducing the pressure, and they showed significant increases in quality of life with a 3-fold reduction in the plantar pressure in the forefoot compared to a sham insole. So this is important research to understand also. So in summary, regarding pressure, pressure first is defined as a force applied over a given surface area of contact, and it is measured in pascals, kilopascals, and megapascals. Higher applied forces over smaller surface area are what's going to give us higher pressures. So if we want to have a smaller pressure, we want to have a smaller force over a larger surface area. If we want to have a higher pressure, we're going to have larger forces act over smaller surface area contact. These plantar pressures are very important in the plantar foot during our weight-bearing activities, because high pressures can cause plantar ulceration. In a neuropathic patient, can cause plantar calluses and generalized plantar foot pain, either at the heel or forefoot. And we can use these custom foot orthoses as a way to modify the plantar pressures on the plantar foot to heal these conditions, to prevent ulceration and amputation in diabetic neuropathic patients, so that we can use our knowledge of pressures in order to design either our foot orthoses or foot surgeries in order to improve the lives of our patients. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and please stay safe.